Hurricane Ernesto drawing closer to Bermuda. Ernesto has been gradually strengthening and certainly widening throughout the course of today. It is still a Category 1 hurricane though. It's been struggling with dry air according to the National Hurricane Center at 25.4 degrees north, 69.2 degrees west. Movement is quite slow at the moment, but it is expected to speed up again a little bit as it moves more northeasterly. It is still closer to due north right now, moving at 9 miles per hour. 85 mile per hour winds. Recon are in the storm right now. They've gotten winds between 85 and 90 miles per hour once it translates to the ground. And a pressure estimate of 974 millibars. That was actually a good estimate from a drop sonde earlier on. Well, here is the storm's current position, and just a note that 4 p.m. Atlantic Daylight Time, that's the time zone in Bermuda, 1 hour ahead of Miami. There it is with the wind field extending out 150 nautical miles along the eastern quadrants there, and of course a hurricane warning is in effect for Bermuda. It is 477 kilometers from one of the closest points of land, Cockburn Town in the Turks and Caicos Islands, 549 from Cockburn Town in the Bahamas, 810 from Nassau, 871 from Bermuda, and 1250 from Cape Hatteras, of course, off the US Outer Banks. Well, the storm, of course, will be heading on further than that. It will be heading towards Atlantic Canada after it passes Bermuda. That's towards day 5, and it will be turning post-tropical by the time it gets through Newfoundland. So damaging winds is the primary concern from this storm, where we're getting winds of up to 100 miles per hour likely on Bermuda over the next couple of days, with a dangerous storm surge and very rough sea conditions. Up to 12 inches of rain possible for Bermuda, maybe even higher in some areas or indeed in the vicinity of the island, because the storm is expected to do a little bit of wobbling around there. We can illustrate that now with this forecast cone, not a cone but a forecast track here showing the storm's projected movement there over Bermuda by the time we get through Saturday. Quite slow as it does that, and then speeds up again, moving towards Nova Scotia, misses, possibly clipping the southeastern tip of Newfoundland. Of course, St. John's is a significant settlement there, population 200,000, and then over the North Atlantic Ocean as an extratropical storm, really shifting towards the east there. Well, this is the 85 mile per hour reading, decent estimate on that, supported by the recon data. The ADT, the Dvorak estimates have been lagging behind dreadfully and still are there, only suggesting winds of 70 miles per hour, but obviously recon is much more accurate than anything that you can take from satellites. There's the latest National Hurricane Center forecast cone as well, and you can see again it will get very close to Newfoundland, possibly a landfall there as a hurricane just before it turns post-tropical and weakens to a tropical storm. They did predict a major hurricane yesterday. They've tapered off that intensity peak, and they're now forecasting a 110 mile per hour high-end Category 2. Here's the GFS forecast, and you can see the storm there getting quite strong. It definitely will be weakening by the time it does reach Bermuda, but before then there is a small window of the storm to get to Category 3 status possibly, and then maybe after Bermuda it might have a little chance of re-intensification slightly, but in general it's going to stick quite level at Category 2 status there. Quite a bit of weakening there on that GFS model, which is interesting, and then continuing on, strengthening again, and then impacting Newfoundland possibly with hurricane force winds, eventually moving towards the British Isles at the end of that run as well. Looking at the reflectivity, and you can see that north and eastern side is really filled up with those red zones there. It reconsolidates after it passes Bermuda as well. Quite decent structure actually, quite small towards the end indeed, moving through Newfoundland, but certainly very high rain rates will be a key feature in this storm by the looks of things. It looks like there could be tremendous amounts of rain on the northern side before and during the storm, which can lead to extremely high rainfall values. We'll take a look at those in just a second, but there's the storm continuing off extratropical by the time it heads towards Europe. I've circled Bermuda there because it's quite hard to see, and you can see the storm getting towards that area, really throwing up those rainfall amounts, getting into the red zone there, which is over 10 inches, and some of those pink zones quite close to Bermuda as well, where rainfall amounts could be approaching 20 inches, 500 millimeters. At the moment, the forecast calls for maybe 12 inches on Bermuda itself, although it is very close call, could be much higher if the storm slows down a little bit earlier than expected. For Newfoundland, maybe 2 or 3 inches there on the forecast. Obviously, most storms aren't massive rainmakers by the time they get up there, but of course for those areas, 2 inches is still quite a significant number. Current sea surface temperatures are looking good. You can expect these numbers would be minimums rather than maximums, so these are the baseline numbers. Certainly looking at 28 to 29 degrees Celsius, possibly pushing 30 in a few parts of the Sargasso Sea. Around Bermuda it's 26 to 27. It'll drop down to about 25 or 26 after it passes Bermuda, which will mean slow weakening as the storm continues, maybe a little bit more of a boost over the Gulf Stream, and then eventually towards Newfoundland, where those temperatures are at a pretty cool 16 to 18 degrees Celsius. And here's the imagery of the storm right now, and it's certainly got that shrimp look about it. It's been trying to get an eye wall formed, it's been struggling to do so. National Hurricane Center said in their discussion earlier that it was dry air that was preventing it from happening, and on the mesoscale rapid scan here you can see it very clearly indeed. Very nice imagery there. Big bursts of convection on that eastern side, but there's a massive dry slot in the middle of it all, which is preventing Ernesto from strengthening much more than it is currently. But 85 miles per hour is certainly significant. It could easily get to category 2 even during this dry air entrainment. It might prevent it from becoming a major hurricane, but certainly Ernesto is on the march. Still some distance away from Bermuda, of course, but it will be drawing closer quite soon. Starting to look a little bit better overall on that satellite imagery of those 2 bursts of convection either side, but again it has to deal with that little bit of dry air that it's got. Here's a nice looking true color image here showing the storm in relation to the United States. It's about as big as Florida there, and frontal systems just off the northern edge of it as well, providing some rain in advance of the storm too, which could cause some massive accumulations. Here's some close-ups from the Force 13 floaters on our website. You can take a look at those and our automated streaming service, which is active right now as well on our YouTube channel. But these are some of the latest images that we've seen. Certainly some big convection blowing up in that massive area on that western side, at times into the -80s. But the word right now, Ernesto gradually strengthening, northeastward turn to follow, and should speed up a little bit as it heads towards Bermuda.